Okay, here we go. We are live and streaming with my friend and marketing just expert. I'm so super excited to have him on the program, Mr. Matt Muscat. Matt, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Jim. Glad to be on the show.
Yeah. So I was happened to be on Matt's podcast a few weeks back, and I just was super impressed with his knowledge and his ability. And I thought it would be fun to have kind of share the wealth of knowledge and bring Matt onto this podcast. So Matt, I know you've got an extensive digital marketing background. You have an incredible bio, and you are the marketing director of a very successful boutique mortgage company out in the East Coast. But give everybody a little bit of background about you more than that.
Yeah, so I was a product. I joked that I was a product of the recession. I was not born during the recession. I'm not that young, but I graduated college during the recession. And I remember all of my teachers in journalism at the time saying, "What the hell are all of you guys doing? You're never going to get a job. We've all just been laid off." And the only other major I could transfer my credits to was communications. And at the end of that program, they said, "Hey, there's this new thing called digital marketing. We're going to teach you how to do website SEO. We're going to teach you Twitter, Facebook ads, etc." And I said, "Sign me up, because I cannot pay 50 grand for college without having one marketable skill." And I joke that not even like 6 months after starting that program, a local mortgage company reached out when no one was hiring, especially not in mortgage or real estate. And they said, "Hey, if you can do this SEO thing for us, you're hired." And so I did.
Wow.
And that's how it started in real estate. And then what was really cool, my first really aha moment in real estate was we got the site ranking really well. And I said, "Okay, cool. So like I did that, and now I just have to maintain it. But like, what else?" They're like, "Well, each one of these leads is worth like a grand or two to the mortgage company, and then a couple grand to the realtor. So if you can do anything else to help realtors get leads, they will like us more, and they will possibly send us some business." So I said, okay. So then from then on out, I focused almost all my attention on getting realtors to like me, reach out to me, by me helping them with their website, or me giving them some free advice on database, on email marketing, on whatever. I mean, on postcards, on events.
Yeah.
And so the last 10 years, I've been meeting, 20 to 30 realtors and lenders a week. We work on what's going to work for them based on kind of like the unique assets that they bring to the business, because we're all different, right? Like we should go to market slightly differently, or market to different people. So that's my 10,000 foot over.
What's really interesting is you're also a teacher. You're an instructor. I know you speak nationally, and let's talk. Digital marketing is always a hot topic. Let's talk about like your, the kinds of advice that you give to people, and what is your best strategies and those kind of things. I'd love to kind of get into that with you.
Yeah. So if we were talking like biggest broad stroke strategy that I think should work for everybody, I call it the Facebook or Instagram message strategy. And the overall idea here is this is a strategy that works for two reasons. Number one, it works because it amplifies all of the other work you do on social media, getting people to see your stuff. And number two, it helps you to have more conversations. So the exact strategy is this. Go to your friends list on either Facebook or Instagram, your preferred site, or both, and start from A to Z so that you can keep it organized. And every day, depending on how much time you have and how many people are in your network, send a certain number of messages out. That's probably 20. That's probably right for most people. And in those 20 messages, here's what you don't do. You don't talk about real estate first, right? Because if you do, you're a pariah and nobody will want to be your friend.
No, never talk to you again.
Right. What you want to do is you want to click on their profile, see what they've been up to recently, say what they've been posting about, and message them about that. Right. Like, Jim, if I go to your profile and I saw that you took your family camping last week, and it's probably too cold to go camping right now, but if you did that, I'd message you and say, "Hey, how'd the kids do doing that? I'm taking my kids out this weekend and I just want to know how to prepare."
Love it.
You took the time to post about your camping trip. You clearly cared about it. And so I message you about that. I'm showing interest in you. There's a high chance you're going to respond. Now, whether or not the conversation ends up leading to you wanting to buy a house for me, it's almost irrelevant, because Facebook or Instagram's algorithm is picking up on the fact that we're talking to each other. And now they're going to show you more of my posts and vice versa over the next couple of weeks. So if I'm posting a little bit of real estate, you're going to be reminded of that without me specifically shoving it down your throat.
I love it.
And the second piece is that in most conversations in the English speaking language, when I've started a conversation with you, we're talking about camping or whatever, at some point in the conversation, you're going to ask me a question. Can you guess what that question is, Jim?
What have you been up to? No, I can't really.
Yes, that's the question. How are you? What have you been up to? What's new with you?
Yeah.
You guessed it perfectly. And almost everyone always guesses that perfectly.
Yeah.
Once you've done that, you have now opened up the gates for me to direct the conversation wherever I want to take it. Whatever the biggest priority is in my life right now, if I'm promoting my podcast, I can talk about that. If I need to pick up, if I need to make sure you remember that I'm a realtor or a lender, I can bring that topic up, but in a positive way. I wouldn't say, oh, Jim, remember I'm in mortgages. I'd love to refinance you. That's not my jam. I would probably say, hey, it's been a really cool month with the market being so great with rates. We've been doing a lot of refinances. We've been busy, but it's a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Mention it in a positive way, because I know that when you're going about your week at your office with hundreds of other people, someone's refinancing or purchasing. And if I've mentioned it casually to you, I'm at least top of mind in a way that's free. I would probably tell you that the agents that I work with on a monthly basis who do the strategy spend no money on it. And they're at least able to set meetings in person or actually book listing appointments or buyer's appointments off of this strategy. So that's probably my number one, the easiest one out there.
So good, because you know what, I think that when you talk to like the top producers in the country, what you find is that, and we talk about this a lot, I think we talked about it during my interview too, is that they don't treat their people or their database as a database or as a customer or client. They treat them as friends. And the goal is to elevate all relationships to friendships. And when you do that, friends do business with friends, friends refer friends. That's just a classic of what you're saying there. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, I heard my mentor the other day made a comment to me. We were talking about like, what's the best real estate book, sales book, whatever. And it's funny because every single great piece of advice, like the one you just gave, goes back to the 100-year-old book, How to Win Friends and Influence.
Absolutely.
People do business with people they like.
Yes.
So I'll kind of jump from there to like my second tip. And this one's fun and easy.
Okay.
And that would also be for social media, but also like possibly for life in general and career in general. And that is to have like 5 different personas for how your customers and your friends think of you. Because for most people, the fact that they're in real estate is like the least interesting thing about them, unless their name is like Ryan Serhant or Barbara Corcoran, right? Like the fact that I do real estate marketing only really interests people that are in real estate.
Right.
But think about like all the things in your life that you want to be remembered by. Like, what do you want it to say on your tombstone? Like, I want people to think that like I'm really knowledgeable about wine. I want them to think that I'm really good at traveling with my kids. I want them to remember that I love to play pickleball and that my family's from Malta, right? Like those are a couple things.
Sure.
I consistently post about a variety of those things on social media. My posts are going to reach a much more diverse audience than if everything was about one topic, right? If everything I posted was about bowling, everyone's going to be turned off that's not into bowling.
Right.
It's really important that when you're a realtor, you're not just posting real estate because it's not the most exciting thing you're doing most of the time.
Right.
Have different topics out there that people can relate to you on, because again, it doesn't matter if they're reaching out to you to sell a house or buy a house. It just matters that they're reaching out to you in the first place, because at some point they're going to be reminded of what you do. And I can tell you that like, this is going to sound crazy out there to all the realtors that get hounded by lenders constantly. I have never made an outbound cold call to a real estate agent in 10 years.
Wow.
Not my jam.
How does your business come to you? Just from these kind of things?
Yeah. Had one, could pull up my phone. I went to a hot new restaurant in town with my wife, had a great time at it 2 weeks ago, posted about it. And I had probably 15 realtors, friends, other people, but at least 15 realtors message me, hey, how was the restaurant? Want to check that out? And every single time I gave them a great response for what I thought about the restaurant. And I was like, dude, I didn't know you were a foodie. We should grab lunch sometime.
Right. I love it. I love it.
Whether you're like in real estate prospecting for customers, or you're in mortgages prospecting for realtors, or realtors prospecting for builders, the same strategy works, I think, in any sales career that you're in. So that's my second best free idea. And it's a ton of fun, because who doesn't love talking about the things that they enjoy?
Yeah, and both of these ideas, I mean, that's one thing that I think is a holdback for a lot of people is I don't have a lot of money for marketing. And I love the quote that is, do what you can where you're at with what you have, right?
Yes.
And, that's so true. I mean, it's free. I mean, and there's no downside. Why not? Why wouldn't you do these things every day?
Well, and I would challenge people, and I always tell people, like, everything in real estate marketing is time versus money. When you're new and you don't have any money coming in, hopefully you have a lot of time, right? Unless you have like 5 kids. And at that point, I don't even want to talk to you about all the paid marketing until you've maxed out the free marketing. Until you are so like crushing it on free marketing and you've done everything, paid marketing just doesn't seem to make sense for me.
Yeah.
Then, you get to the point in your career where you're doing a ton of business, you don't have a lot of time anymore. Now, all of a sudden you can start spending some money to buy your time back. But it's a fine balance, and you got to kind of continually grow that.
Yeah, for sure. Now, let me ask you a question, which is a hot topic too, and I'm sure you're an expert at it, which is this concept of remarketing and making sure that you're staying in front of your own clients more frequently. Because that would be an example of us spending a little bit of money to be in front of our database, more frequently on social. Right. Are you a believer in that?
I'm a huge believer in staying top of mind in front of your database. I think, I constantly have realtors and lenders coming to me with these crazy marketing ideas.
Right.
I'm like, well, have you stayed in contact with your database recently? Because they already like you.
Yeah.
And that's number one in all things. When it comes to like social media, like paid advertising, remarketing, I do recommend doing it. However, it's not as easy as it used to be. So a couple caveats there. Number one, Apple users, it's really hard to retarget Apple users.
Half the population is Apple users, right?
Right. Like, I have an iPhone, so it's really hard to retarget me.
Yeah.
The new iOS updates have really just shot that. And on top of that, it's really hard to do paid social media ads in the real estate and mortgage industry because you have to check that little box that says fair housing, fair credit. Yeah. I don't agree with the way that law was passed, but in general, it's just tough. So I would recommend all forms of remarketing outside of social media. If you can, staying in communication via text, email, just being on their social media rather than doing paid remarketing. Gotcha. Because unless you have a massive database or you're the brokerage, it's just a challenging thing to do.
It doesn't make a lot of sense. Totally get it. Now you talk about something that is, the 5x5 strategy was the 5 personas, right? Or is that the 5x5 strategy for listings that aren't yours? What does that mean?
Yeah. So this is one I really like. So I was at a Starbucks just hanging out like in between meetings.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think I got bored working. I didn't want to look at my laptop anymore. And I just started listening. And of all the tables behind me, 3 of them were talking about real estate and 2 of them were talking about their children.
Wow.
Literally everybody in the world is talking about real estate all the time.
That's so true.
The shows on TV, it's
everywhere.
Typically it's like kids, real estate, religion. There's very few topics like the weather.
Right.
We know that everybody's interested in it, but we're not doing a good job of marketing something interesting when it comes to real estate if we're in the industry.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is like most brokerages tell their agents to call their clients and remind them that they want them to refer to them.
Mm-hmm.
It's awful. Like, don't call me and ask me for a referral without like trying to like butter me up first. Take me out to dinner before you take me to bed.
Take me
but like in general, the 5x5 strategy is this. You can call it 3x3, 5x5. Every Monday, choose the 5 coolest listings that came on the market in your area and choose 5 individual people to send each one of those to. These are people from your database. They could be leads, they could be prospects, they could be closed clients. It could be someone you sold a house to a month ago. I don't care. The idea is that you send a message that says, hey, I know I just sold you a house like a year ago, but this came on the market and it's exactly what you were looking for then. Thought you might be interested. Let me know what your thoughts are. And you're not going to sell them a new house necessarily, but you're reinvigorating their interest that is dormant in there somewhere. And I'll tell you what, this strategy really works because in the last couple years, inventory has been so tight that almost all of us as real estate professionals have been selling people houses they like, but not houses that they love.
Yes.
Like, it's almost a miracle if you can find someone a house that they absolutely love that checks all the boxes. But every day there's new stuff coming on the market, even though it's limited. The right house is coming up for that person, but it might be 6 months later, and people will absolutely move for the perfect house.
That's interesting. I use a script that's very similar to this. I'll always ask people, if you could live anywhere in any house, what does that look like for you? Which I think is I call the dream script.
Yeah.
And then they get into this conversation and they say, well, I do something fun for my friends. I set up a dream search, even though you're not looking, it'll just keep in front of you every 30, 45 days. It's just kind of aspirational. And it just kind of keeps people in that mindset of reminding them, oh, this is what you eventually want to own. And it's a fun little exercise when you're out there in the field.
Well, it's so funny that you say that, because another one of my mentors does the exact same thing, and he just landed a $25 million sale off of it.
Wow.
A guy that he works with that had been telling him about his dream lake house that didn't exist for years and years and years.
Right.
Well, popped up on the market, and he sold him immediately, and the guy bought it.
There's an example, right? $25 million sale. Jeez.
People move for perfection, and overall, it's a good way to stay in touch with your past clients. It's important for your clients to understand that you're keeping your thumb on the pulse of the market.
Yes.
Like, I want to be known as an expert when it comes to real estate marketing. So if something new comes out, I want to know about it.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm a realtor or a lender and I'm selling something, I want to be coming to my clients with opportunities before they come to me with them. When I come to a client, I want to present them something that's tangible, thought out, and that's ready to go.
Yeah.
I want to call them and say, hey, call me if you ever want to buy a house.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not as strong.
No.
The 5x5 or the 3x3, whichever way you want to take it, really gets you closer to presenting something tangible to your clients, at least something interesting.
I think right along with that, I came across this concept of hand curation of listings, because a lot of times right now what happens is agents sign up buyers onto an automated system and it just shoots them listings every day. But that pretty quickly becomes noise, right? You're like, because I've been on these systems as a buyer myself. Communities, right? And so I had this top producer working with me in another community. We're looking to buy a second home, and what she did is hand curation. She still set me up on the list, but then every day she'd also say, now Jim, of that list I sent you, these are the 2 you should really pay attention to. The other 10 are junk. These 2 are great. Let me tell you why. And that was like hand curating that list and giving it to me. And it's kind of akin to your 5x5 for a live buyer that you're working with. Very similar. It's like taking it to the next level.
Well, and you know what I love about that? I like the yes. You put them on the five houses, just in case you have a busy day, family stuff comes up, and you don't get with them personally that one day, right? When the perfect property comes up, I think you've dropped the ball. But when you actually take that list and you whittle it down into like the best ones, and you give them your feedback, what that's doing for me is it's making you better than the internet.
Right. Exactly.
Like buyers don't need a realtor to just like find them a house that's already on the internet. That's like
whatever.
20 years ago. Buyers want the opinion that the realtor has, the professional opinion, the years of expertise in the area. And they want you as a friend to tell them like what to do. People want to be led. And I love that you're doing that, because the internet can't do that well.
And it takes you away from being a commodity, because basically every realtor can sign them up for an automated system now, or to elevating the relationship, which I think is great.
Well, I think that's such a great message about not being commodity in 2022 in February. I mean, like in my market, yesterday was the least amount of homes that have ever been on the market ever, which I think is going to mean there's going to be less realtors and less lenders next year, because there's going to be less business to go around, and the top people are sure not going to let their market share slip. So everyone on the bottom that's not doing good business is going to get squeezed out. What that means is that if you're a commodity and all you're doing is finding houses on Zillow for people and then opening the door for them, you're not worth 3%. You're not worth it. There's technology that's going to squeeze you out too. So you have to start putting those personal touches in, being memorable, and delivering that extra level of service.
So I've got 2 questions for you, and we're talking about, the market's definitely going through a shift. We're seeing a lot of change in the market right now. But aside, we'll circle back to that. But for a new agent that's getting in the business, because we see a record number of new agents still entering the business. I mean, they're still coming through the front door. They're coming in cold. Like, what would be your recommendation for a brand new agent who doesn't necessarily have a big database, comes in and maybe they're new to the area or just new to real estate? And what's your recommendation for that?
A couple different ones. So typically when I meet with a brand new agent, which I'm passionate about doing, because I want to help someone when they need help, not necessarily when they're a $50 million agent and they don't care who I am, right? My first question is, where do you expect your business to come from? And if they say, I get really interesting answers on this. Some people will tell me, but basically all of the answers will lead me to understand what assets they're coming in with. Are they part of like a I have one guy, he's the president of the Jeep club in town.
Hmm.
He knows every person that owns a Jeep in our area. I have another person who is on like every like committee at her church. I have another person who is in a sport and social club. Like they have all these different sports they play, and then they all go to the bar afterwards. So you get to meet 30 new people a week.
Right.
Whatever you tell me that you're into, we're going to craft a strategy to figure out how to make sure that you can tap into that market in a non-salesy way, but make sure that you're adding to your database every week. Because maybe you get into real estate and you only have 100 people. Okay, because the average realtor, according to NAR, closes 7% of their database per year if they market to them like 8 to 12 times. So what's the average purchase price by you?
We're at about 450.
Jesus, that's high. So I'm terrible at math because I work in mortgages, but let's say you're at $500,000 and you have 100 people in your database because you're new. So you do 7 deals at $500,000. That's 3.5 million at a 3% commission minus some fees. I mean, that's around $90,000 to $100,000.
Exactly.
What other career are you going to make that kind of money in your first year? Now, let's face it, that's really hard to do, but that's using averages that our industry has established. My biggest piece of advice would be this: go through your cell phone, and anyone who you would recognize on a first name basis, if you saw them at the grocery store, add them to your database. Go through your social media, do the same thing. Put whatever contact information you have down. Go through your spouse's or your partner's social media, their phone, do the same thing. Think about your kids' school directory, who you see in the drop-off pickup line, add them to your database. Almost anyone, unless they're 22 and they just moved to an area after college, should be able to come up with 100 to 200 people. If you then market to those people, post a lot on social media, and try to set meetings for every week with different people, not to talk about real estate, but just to live, you should be able to close 7 to 10 deals.
I love it. What a great message. I think that is spot on. And that's exactly what every new agent should be doing. So let's switching gears a little bit. And that is you're a social media expert, a marketing expert. When we talking about, because we have our sphere of influence, people that know, like, and trust us, we would recognize in a grocery store kind of thing. But then we have a social audience. That's a completely different animal. Some of those people our friends will be there, of course, but we're going to have a large group of people that are just not that close to us. Now, what is your message there? Are we trying to grow our audience size? Are you always trying to look to grow that audience to the max level, or does that matter as much as quality? I mean, what's your messaging on that?
Yeah, so my messaging on that is that for me, social media is like my Rolodex with a save button. So when I go to a party, if I meet someone and I have a conversation with them for more than 2 or 3 minutes, I add them or I wait for them to add me on social media. Typically for me, funny enough, I'm an extrovert, but I act like an introvert a lot of the times. I've learned that when I'm at a party and I meet someone, I want to ask them 100 questions about themselves. And I kind of almost want to like ghost out before they ask me anything about myself, because then I leave them like curious and wanting to know more. Then they typically add me on social. I accept them, and then I strike up a conversation. So I guess my main message is grow your social media following, but only with people that you're going to engage with. Like if I get added by someone on social that I don't know, I send them a message. I'm like, hey, looks like we're friends in common with Johnny, and we both live in Forest Hills. How are you? I try to send them an engaging message that will lead to a conversation starting, and then eventually ask me a question about myself.
Got it.
If I wouldn't bother adding someone on social other than family if like we're not going to engage.
Do you have a benchmark? Do you say to agents, hey, you should probably be at 1,000 people?
No,
nope, nothing like that.
I don't. In fact, I love social media, but I tell agents that you don't have to use social media to be successful.
Got it. Okay.
It's if you like it and it's in your comfort zone, it's the best tool out there.
Sure.
However, if you're not going to use it and you're not going to put a bare minimum effort in, don't use it because it'll make you look worse.
Yeah. And it's amazing to me because we're both in coaching and we both do a lot of education, but when I'm out actually talking to the highest level producers, people that are really doing 50, 60, 70, 80 million, it is amazing to me how many of them are not very good at social media. So it's really fascinating actually, but what they are really good at is being super close to their database, and they're doing it in other forms and fashions. So they're making the calls, they're making the texts, they're doing the networking, which is the number one thing I see them do: breakfast, lunch, dinner, drinks, that kind of thing. So I think you're dead right there. There's other forms of communication. It doesn't have to all be social.
Yeah, and you know what? I will say I do have a couple applications for social media for those top producers. So my boss, my mentor, my favorite person in our industry, top producing salesperson, $150 million a year in sales. He's on social, but like he gets tagged in family posts and he doesn't do anything. And we have found a way for him to use social to get business. And what that is his admin, his paid executive assistant, who's amazing, goes through his newsfeed once or twice a week, and she gives him a report of everything he needs to know.
Interesting.
That's the whole plan.
So she's looking for life change of his clients, right?
Yeah, like he wants to know if someone had a baby. He wants to know if someone got engaged. He wants to know all of those details so that he can have his team send out the appropriate gift. If they call him, he wants those notes in his CRM system so that he doesn't seem like the idiot that didn't know that his client that he's friends with on social just got engaged, married, or something else.
I love it. What that is absolutely brilliant. That's so smart.
So basically use social as like data gathering and then take it off of social if you're not into social.
So actually, I mean, social can be one of the best CRMs in the world because they're giving you all the information right in front of you to pull from and use, right?
Right. I mean, all these people out there, consumers complain about like big companies are gathering data on us, etc. But we can, social media like Facebook, Instagram, especially, it can be a tool that, you know, individuals can use like guerrilla warfare to really take the same benefit and more than a big company could.
What's your take on video in regards to social and maybe also speak to TikTok and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I think we would all agree that video is probably important.
Yeah.
I like video. I like to talk. I like to hear myself talk. I will say there's differences in video. Number one, the first video you ever post, whether it's amazing or terrible, will get you business typically. And the reason for that is that all of your friends who want to make fun of you and mock you will tune in, listen to your message, and will hear the message. And so you'll typically get some business from that. So every new agent should absolutely do a kind of like, I'm a realtor now, and this is what I do, and this is who I help video. In terms of like doing videos beyond that, I would say keep them short. Short videos are really all people have time for when it comes to real estate, or like really fun videos with a purpose, like live, kind of like this, like a Facebook Live, where it's engaging. Hopefully this is engaging to people out there. But kind of figure one out. Like I have a salesperson who is not going to do a video about refinancing because it's not her style. Like she would be mortified to be on camera. However, what we did is we hired a Disney princess to come on and do a Zoom interview with her. And we asked questions about the housing market in Arendelle, where Frozen takes place, if you have young.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
And this mortgage loan officer, invited all of her clients and their kids to tune into this live real estate interview with Princess Elsa.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, and there's a company, actually, I'll give a shout out. The company is called Olivia and Grace, and I think they're where I live. They're in Michigan. They have princesses that are like licensed by Disney that will interviews and do like little meet and greets with your kids.
Oh, that is so awesome. I love that.
There's ways to do video if you're not into video, or at least your audience can enjoy it without you being mortified by your own self.
What's your thoughts on TikTok?
My wife and I were just at the doctor's getting a COVID test to go on vacation, and we sat there and we watched TikTok for 10 minutes and we laughed and we learned a little bit about real estate investment properties. My thoughts on using TikTok for marketing is that you have to go all in to see any value whatsoever, unless you're a national business, because the traffic that I'm seeing on TikTok is huge. You'll get a ton of views on your videos if you do them consistently and they're good, but it's not going to be thousands of people in your market typically.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit like hesitant to issue a verdict on TikTok because I haven't seen a ton of we've gotten a couple leads off of it, but nowhere near compared to like our organic reach on Facebook, Instagram with people that are in our market that are kind of connected to us through a friend of a friend.
Yeah. I look at it as a, just another leg in your social media kind of arsenal, right? And we're already shooting short form video probably because we're posting it on Reels. So if you're going to post on Reels anyway, which is Instagram's version of TikTok, you might as well post it on TikTok. Like there's no downside for you, right?
I especially like creating a video on TikTok because they have the best video editing features out there.
Right. Yeah.
And then using it on Reels, especially because then it hits your current audience that you're already engaging with. I've heard a ton of people that are doing that. We do it all the time. I will say the magic number I have found for TikTok is 12. If you do 12 or more videos a month, I have seen consistently that one will go viral.
Interesting.
So
yes.
It takes a while. It takes on average a couple months to really build your TikTok to the point where every video gets a couple thousand views.
Yeah.
However, if you do 12, typically one will go viral. And then the next video you do after that will then be at a new level.
It'll level up 2,500, then 3. Yep. Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
So I see a lot of value there. And then
That's interesting. I've experienced that myself, and I think you're dead right.
Yeah. The other big thing with TikTok, and I'm sure you know this already, but I'll say it for everyone else out there, you really have to follow the trends. Like you have to consume TikTok to know what song is trending and like what silly meme is happening right now so that you could come up with, how do I use that song for my industry in my city and do the same thing that someone else did. So it's one of those sites where you really have to be bought into it as a consumer as well as a business if you want it to work as a business.
Switching gears for a second, and I know your time is valuable. I don't want to take too much of your time, but in terms of marketing homes on all the social platforms, do you find that there's value in this is a big question I get a lot. Is there value in the agent themselves being in the video, or is it better just to showcase the house?
I've never had that question asked to me, so I'm going to ponder that for a second. I would say the answer is unequivocally yes. There's value to the agent putting their spin on the video. I don't know that your face needs to be in the video if that's not your jam. I think to do a voiceover, or I think to like have your own like comments on the video of why the house is great. Like looking at a house itself doesn't do much for me most of the time because most houses that are for sale in the US don't have a ton of character, right? 50% of the stock was built by builders in the last 25 years, right? So like cookie cutter neighborhoods everywhere you go. However, every house has been customized a little bit differently, and I want to hear the realtor's thoughts on that. That's what I care about as a consumer. That's why I do my showings with a realtor that I trust who has opinions and who has voice. Like if you're a realtor and you're not explaining what's cool about a property, like why don't I just go on Zillow and do a virtual tour? Like
exactly.
We were doing during COVID. It wasn't very fun. So I think, yes, your opinion matters. And I think the color commentary you provide is huge. I've seen some realtors do a great job with videos on TikTok and Reels where they kind of like take a sarcastic approach to some investment property opportunities. And I don't want to say they roast the house, but draw a lot of attention to undervalued properties that have terrible listing photos as a way to attract investors who are like, wow, this property is a dump. It's a great opportunity.
Right.
So there's different approaches to it, but check with your MLS and your ethics committee on what you're allowed to do.
What you can do and what you can't do. I love it. Okay, Matt. So if somebody wants to like learn more about your spin, how you approach the business, want to learn more from you. I know you have a book that you've written. I want to promote the book. I know you have a podcast. How can people find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to mattmuscat.com, mattmuscat.com, you can find a link to my book, The Tangible Action Guide to Real Estate Marketing. Every chapter is 2 to 3 pages, written especially for people that are busy and who might have $1 million buyer pop out at any moment and distract them. And the book talks about social media, database, talks about mailers, postcards, everything you could think of. There's a little bit of something for everybody. It's a choose your own adventure guide because those books were big when I was a kid.
Right.
And it's an easy read. So check that out. You can find it on my website or on Amazon. And then, the podcast. So the podcast, we interview a different agent every week from a different area of the country or the world, because I think that marketing sometimes happens in a silo. Like everyone in your market might be doing that one thing. Someone in a different market might want to learn that. And someone in a different market might have something to share back with you. So if you want to hear ideas like that, first listen to Jim's podcast, but then listen to mine right afterwards.
Subscribe to both, get the both, right?
Yeah. And honestly, I'm always happy to have a conversation. So you can shoot me an email, mattm@treadstonemortgage.com, or you can check out our website. We're kind of the most fun mortgage company on the planet. We're culture first. I know like you guys are. And we have a lot of really great employees that help us to close our loans in 18 days or less typically.
I love it. I know, Matt, you're also a speaker. So if people want to reach out to you about speaking into their group, they reach out
I would
to
love to speak.
All right. Matt, it's been a pleasure having you on, man. You've dropped a lot
Thanks,
of great nuggets, man. Thank you so much. And we'll definitely have you back on the program sometime soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Jim. Have a great night.
Thank you. You too.